This is the second video on the kora, an African musical instrument. So if you missed the first one, just find the kora 1 and look at that one before you go through this one. If I go to the Cambridge syllabus, you see there that candidates do not need to study music from the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, but should be taught about the instruments and musical features of kora music and Afrobeat. So Afrobeat I will do in the next video, which are described in the following sections. The instrument or terms specific to the world focus with which candidates should be familiar are printed in bold. So all the bold words are very important. Information has been provided on the history and socio-cultural context of this music for the benefit of teachers. So you just have to be aware of the background. So the kora is quite important. Let's look at the bold words there. Gilead, I hope I pronounced that correctly. The praise singers, that's quite important. If I carry on, I have the different sections in the performance, the Kumbango and the Birimintengo that I'm going to discuss in this video. And then the percussive sound, the con. And then I see that is all the bold words that you have on the kora. And there we start with Afrobeat. If I look at the picture, there I will see that it looks like a guitar or a harp or a lute. And it's built from a large calabash, cut in half, covered with a resonating cow skin and with a long hardwood neck passing through it. The skin is supported by 2 handles that run underneath it. So when we look at a picture of that and when we watch YouTube videos, you will see the 2 handles. Now I've got 21 strings, 11 played by the left hand and 10 by the right hand, each playing a different note. The strings pass through notches on the side of a high breech. You see the notches there, and are anchored to the bottom of the neck with a metal ring. So there I see the metal ring. Strings are supported by a notched double freestanding breech. So there's the breech. The longer, thicker strings are above the shorter, thinner strings. Bass strings are the high strings and the treble strings are the low strings. Strings were traditionally made from thin strips of hide, such as cow or antelope skin, and today most strings are made from harp strings or nylon fishing line obtained at local markets, sometimes plaited together to create thicker strings. Okay, so I see everything there, and it's tuned to a 7-tone scale by adjusting the tuning rings along its neck. So there I see tuning rings of leather. Much variation regarding tuning exists in practice, and this allows the kora players to collaborate with other African and Western instruments. Okay, so I see there I have a bridge, I have a brace there, the anchor strings, the iron ring here at the end. This is the calabash. I have a sound hole there. These 2 posts, I have the handles for the hands, and I have the tuning rings, and I have the neck. Okay. So the performer sits to play the instrument with the kora resting on his lap and the tall piece resting on the floor. It's gripped to keep it vertical. West African instrument is placed vertically and played in a seated position with the performer facing the strings. So there we see performer sits to play, the instrument of the kora resting on his lap and the tailpiece is resting on the floor. It's gripped to keep it vertical. The patterns played, strings are plucked by the thumb and the forefinger of each hand. The remaining fingers grip the 2 vertical handles, hand posts, and the fingers play a treble melody while the thumbs create a bass line. 2 to 4 note chords, fast scale passages, octave doubling, chords strummed by one finger, and damped notes are also possible. So you can have a lot of different patterns that you can play on this instrument. I can have chords, fast scale passages, octave doubling, chords strummed like on a guitar, and damped notes. The percussive effects, performers might tap on the stick handles or gourd resonator to add a percussive sound. Metal plate with metal ringlet might be attached to the bridge, and this vibrates with the vibrations of strings, producing a buzzing timbre. So now we will discuss a few of the other important words: Gilead, Kumbango, Birimintengo, and Konkon. Part of the Gilead praise singing tradition, the performer either accompanies himself or the kora is played by other members of the family. I've got Kumbango there, Birimintengo, and Konkon. In Gilead praise singing tradition, there are two sections in the performance by the kora, and that's the Kumbango and the Birimintengo. The accompaniment style, layered ostinato riffs of instrumental performance used on kora accompaniment in the singing of the Monday Gilead music is called Kumbango. So the Kumbango is the accompaniment style, and it's got a repetitive ostinato pattern with a steady rhythm. The melody of this section is taken from the vocal line. Each repetition may have subtle, small variations in the Kumbango melody. So let's see there again. The role of the Kumbango is to establish the key and the rhythm of the piece, and the steady, repetitive nature of the melody also allows the kora performer to focus the attention on the text and the audience. So I have an ostinato pattern with a steady rhythm to accompany the singer. The performer may knock on the hand grip with the right finger to produce a percussive sound, but a more common technique referred to as konkon is tapped on the back of the kora by an apprentice or another person. So I see konkon, that is that knock, okay, that percussive sound. Now the other important word that I see there is Birimintengo, and I see there virtuosic, improvisational, soloistic style of playing on the kora in Monday Gilead music is called Birimintengo. So this section is characterized by fast, virtuosic improvisational runs and sequential motives. This can be played when the Kumbango breaks. So the Kumbango, you still remember, is that section with the repetitive ostinato patterns, steady rhythm, and it accompanies the singing. Or it may be played while the ostinato is sustained in the lower parts by the thumbs, creating layers of polyphony. So I can play it in the middle of Kumbango breaks, or I can have a little ostinato pattern played while with my thumbs, and while I have this Birimintengo section, and that creates layers of polyphony. Now let's see what they sing about. They sing about a specific individual, usually the patron, but it can also deal with the history of the Mandika people. Through the Gilead tradition, Mandika history and events are passed down the generations. Several styles of verbal presentation in one performance. It can be speech-like performance when telling stories. It can be like a recitative style for praises and proverbs. And it can be normal melodious singing. The praises usually descend, starting on a high note and falling to a sustained note when the phrase ends. The text setting is mostly syllabic with little or no melisma. Vocal phrases are rhythmically free, separated by instrumental sections where the singer can collect his or her thoughts. The vocal timbre is one of forceful chest resonant song with a tense throat. Two forms found in the vocal part. Donkilo is a tune with several phrases or text, and Sataro, open-ended improvised passage of spoken and chanted text. After the Sataro, a singer may perform the Donkilo or play an instrumental break. So the Donkilo is the tune, different phrases or text, and the Sataro is where I have a chant or spoken text. The Gilead Tradition, the Geli or the Gelilo, also known by the French term grade, is a class of professional hereditary music specialists. They are born into the tradition. Boys inherit their father's craft as a lifelong profession, while young women marry within their father's occupational group. Female Geli do not play melodic instruments, but are trained singers. In the past, the Geli served a specific patron. So they had a rich person or a rich family that looked after them. Their duty was to serve their patron by singing praises in their honor, but the tradition has changed. Few families can afford their own Geli today, and political leaders or any wealthy individuals may become patrons. Gelilo today perform at weddings, political events, and naming ceremonies. They are highly respected for their knowledge and musical artistry, providing a vital link to the culture of the past. The Gelilo are gifted with money by the person praised, as they are no longer supported by a single patron. They serve a broader clientele to earn money. Now I want you to watch these two videos. You can just click on that when you get your papers. And we have Tumani Diabete from Mali mentions that the music performed on the Kora is divine inspiration and that it is a 7-year-old tradition passed on from father to son. He's the 71st generation of Geli in his family. His son is the 72nd. The Grides keep the traditional music alive of the Mande people. There were no written down stories. Okay, you have to be born a Gride. Music is the best way to communicate and tells a story. This is quite interesting to see him performing, the way he holds the Kora and showing all the different features and the techniques possible on the Kora. So this is a very nice YouTube video to watch. Another interesting thing to watch is this video. And I just summarized it a little bit. Kora is a harp from West Africa. You hold it with the last 3 fingers and play it with the thumb and the index fingers. So you only involved 4 fingers. The Kora can be very expensive today. Kora players improvise a lot and play from traditional music to modern music, hip hop and reggae. It dates back to the 13th to the 16th century, and it's the symbol of the Mande people. Musical patterns heard in both recordings: the ostinato pattern, that's a pattern that repeats, accompaniment whilst telling a story, repeated patterns, arpeggios and chord plucking. And also try to watch these other 2, very interesting and educating to watch, good revision of all we studied. So I've got now 2 videos on the Kora and the background of African music, and I'm sure that you will understand everything. Good luck with your studies.